each year along the Pearl River. The Buoluodan Temple Fair is held grandly. Also known as the birthday of the Nunhai god. It honors Zhurong, the South Sea deity. The fair begins on the 11th day of the second lunar month and peaks on the god's birthday, the 13th day. With a 1,000-year history, this is now China's only ritual honoring a sea god. Built in 594 AD, the Nunhai God Temple has stood for over 1,400 years. For centuries, though far from the imperial capital, courts held various rites honoring the sea god, praying for calm seas, safe voyages, and the flourishing of maritime trade. These hopes are embodied in the 4 characters on the temple's plaque. The calm sea. The rituals are solemn, expressing hopes through humility and reverence. Beginning in the Tang Dynasty, Guangzhou, at the Pearl River's mouth, took the lead in establishing the tributary system, the Maritime Trade Administration, and customs oversight. These institutions evolved in sequence, forming the foundation of China's openness to the outside world. Through its engagement with the seas, a traditionally agrarian society was given a vast and enduring blue horizon. This is a typical scene at the Pearl River estuary. Vessels returning from distant oceans gather like birds coming home, guided by pilots as they ease into port.
Over the past 35 years, I've navigated this route about 80 nautical miles, nearly 7,000 times, covering more than 300,000 nautical miles. The combined tonnage I have piloted exceeds 80 million tons.
The Pearl River estuary is narrow, with complex tides. Incoming ships must be guided by pilots who know these waters well. The view before pilot Jing Mingjun is much the same as that faced by pilots more than 300 years ago, when the 3 Ming pagodas of Lianhua, Pazhou, and Churgung appear one after another. Guangzhou has been reached. These pagodas bear witness to the Maritime Silk Road's prosperity. The calm sea embodies a 1,000-year prayer at the Nunhai God Temple. Together, they preserve the enduring dialogue between this land and the sea. On the second lunar month's 13th day, Wang Feng is busy in the square before the temple, as the Buoluodan Temple Fair takes place here.
The Buoluodan has continued for millennia as Guangzhou's oldest temple fair. It has deep cultural roots. Liu Gezhuan, a Song Dynasty poet, wrote, "Incenses rise, fireworks bloom, families sail to honor the sea god." These lines describe how, in the Song Dynasty, people boarded boats on this day to travel to the Nanhai God Temple and join the festivities.
Sacrifice, a state matter since antiquity. Since the Zhou dynasty, the worship of mountains, rivers, lakes, and seas has formed part of the state ritual, linking heaven and earth, and shaping cosmic order. From this, emerged a pantheon of nature deities, with the gods of the four seas holding a central place.
The South Sea has been a vital source of trade for China. From the Wei and Jin periods, through later dynasties, Guangdong, with Guangzhou at its center, has remained a source of national wealth through foreign trade. In Tianbao's 10th year, 751 AD, the Nanhai god was titled King Guangli. The name Guangli means the broad acquisition of benefit and profit.
A millennium on, the temple's incense endures. In 581, the Sui dynasty was founded, ending the longest period of division between north and south. Emperor Wen of Sui, Yang Jian, turned his attention to the seas. In 594, the emperor ordered the construction of 4 temples in Shandong, Shanxi, Guangzhou, and Hunan. Each was dedicated to one of the gods of the four seas. In ancient Chinese thought, the south is tied with fire. Zhu Rong, the legendary fire god, was honored as the South Sea god. Among the four sea gods, the Nanhai god held a special status, with power and prestige surpassing the others. In 726, amid a great drought, Emperor Xuanzong sent envoys to perform rain prayer rites. Zhang Jiuling, a minister from Lingnan, was dispatched to Guangzhou to worship the Nanhai god. With offerings prepared, and the sea as witness, he conducted solemn rites to express devotion to the sea god. 25 years later, Zhang Jiuling's younger brother, Zhang Jiuzhang, returned to Lingnan. On behalf of the Tang court, he presided over a ceremony, granting the Nanhai god the title King Guangli. The title signified wealth from all seas. The Nanhai god became a ruler of the human realm. The title reflected the Tang dynasty's ambition to expand maritime trade in the South Sea. While much of the world still relied on agriculture, China's coastal trade networks were thriving. By the Han Dynasty, the most populous and prosperous regions were China, India, Mesopotamia in the Middle East, and Western Europe. Trade networks linked these regions, and through them, China, an ancient, inland civilization, opened wide to the world.
Hello everyone. The Nanhai God Temple is known as the Southern Steel Forest. The temple preserves 4 major stone steels from the Tang, Song, Ming, and Qing dynasties.
In 820, Nanhai God Temple was restored. A stele was needed to mark the event. Lingnan governor Kong Kuei turned to Han Yu, who had been exiled to Chaozhou, a master among Tang and Song prose writers. Han Yu wrote the stele inscription for the temple of King Guangli. Kong then invited Chen Jian to write the inscription, and Li Shuqi, a great engraver, to carve it. Han's prose, Chen's script, and Li's carving came together as the stele of 3 perfections.
Noble and wealthy, yet unfamiliar with maritime affairs, is directed at the Lingnan governor. There is one critical line in this inscription. Scholars believe that the term maritime affairs first appears in Chinese on this very stele.
At its core, trade exists to seek profit. Without profit, there is no trade. The driving force is the pursuit of benefit. That benefit depends on the international division of labor. Nature gives different regions different resources. For example, throughout history, China relied heavily on spices from Southeast Asia. China was once the world's largest spice importer. Pepper was not only used for flavor, it also had strong preservative qualities. This is why pepper was so prized in Europe. In the age of exploration, Europeans claimed to sail for God and pepper.
When warfare disrupted the overland Silk Road, the Song government promoted tea as a key export commodity. The tea horse trade and overseas commerce drew China deeper into global trade networks. The Pearl River Basin's waterways were fully open. Inland routes linked the region to the Yangtze River economic heartland. Seaward, ships passed the Nunhai God Temple along the Pearl River Channel and sailed out to sea via Humen. Chinese and foreign merchant ships stopped to pray to the Nunhai God for calm seas and safe passage. Inside the temple, 47 stone steles stand in silence, recording imperial sacrifices and repairs to the temple. This southern steel forest stands witness to Guangzhou, gateway of the Maritime Silk Road, and its centuries of change and glory. This map of China and barbarian countries was drawn by Jia Dun, a Tang dynasty geographer. Completed over 10 years. It is one of the earliest large-scale maps in Chinese history. After more than 4 centuries of turmoil, the Tang dynasty entered a period of prosperity. While expanding its territory on land, it began to build a long-distance maritime trade network. Jia Dun also authored the Records of Routes to All Directions, which details sea routes from Guangzhou, across the South China Sea and Indian Ocean to the Persian Gulf. China was now approaching a major shift in foreign trade, from land routes to sea routes. This marked its shift from a land power on the margins to a hub of maritime trade, laying the foundation for its pre-modern dominance in Eurasian trade. In 714, the Guangzhou Maritime Trade Commissioner was set up to oversee maritime diplomacy and overseas trade as China's first official agency for foreign commerce. It replaced the earlier system, managed largely by local authorities.
This wall lists the main officials who served as maritime trade commissioners. From the Tang dynasty to the northern Song, there are more than 70 in total. The first name on the list of Tang and Song commissioners in Guangzhou is Zhou Qingli.
Zhou Qingli was appointed Guangzhou's first maritime trade commissioner. The post was held by trusted commanders of the Imperial Guard, showing the court's high regard for maritime trade. The Tang-era maritime trade commissioner's duties were collecting ship and cargo taxes, inspecting state-controlled goods, and supervising ships, cargo, and personnel. With these institutions in place, the Tang trade routes unfolded in 2 directions. One route led inland across Eurasia, tracing the Silk Road, opened by the Han Dynasty 8 centuries earlier. The other set sail from Guangzhou, following the Maritime Silk Road, to West Asia and East Africa. Vast horizons, land and sea routes united. Long ocean voyages, were no longer distant risks, but open routes, connecting the world.
Once the city gates opened, vast wealth flowed in. That wealth came from taxes levied on imported foreign goods. In practical terms, the Pearl River estuary and the lower Pearl River basin became a major entry point for foreign products entering China. That is why, by the late Tang dynasty, large numbers of Arab and Persian merchants were living in Guangzhou.
Silk, porcelain, and tea flowed steadily out of China, while spices, gemstones, and other goods made their way in. As a maritime trade hub, Guangzhou drew merchants from Arabia, Persia, India, Java, and beyond, forming a diverse and vibrant commercial center. For the world 800 years before the age of exploration, this was unmatched.
This artifact is the centerpiece of our collection, known as coin coral. Its formal name is a Northern Song shipwreck underwater coin concretion. From the layers of coins inside, spanning different periods and currencies, we can picture just how prosperous Guangzhou's foreign trade was at the time.
Compared to the Tang, the Song ruled a much smaller territory. To counter powerful northern rivals, military spending increased. After warfare cut off the overland Silk Road, the Song turned even more to maritime trade. The court abandoned the old tribute system, adopting a more practical trade policy and opening foreign trade to private merchants. This open and reciprocal approach brought immense wealth to the state. While Europe remained in the Middle Ages, trade routes in the Song dynasty expanded far beyond East and Central Asia. They reached Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Peninsula, and the East African coast. More than 50 countries traded with China, forming a truly international trade network. At ancient port sites in Tanzania and Kenya, many Song dynasty coins from the Xining, Zhenghe, and Qingyuan periods have been found. They show that Song coins, backed by the world's leading economy, had become trusted currency in global trade. Along these blue sea routes, China's economic reach had already extended beyond Asia. In 971, Emperor Taizu of Song set up the Maritime Trade Office in Guangzhou, later extending it to ports such as Quanzhou, to oversee merchant shipping, collect customs duties, purchase imported goods, and receive foreign envoys and traders. From the Tang Maritime Trade Commissioner to the Song Maritime Trade Office, a single character marks a fundamental shift. From the old tribute system to a trade system based on equality and mutual benefit. In 1080, the Guangzhou Maritime Trade Regulations were issued, formally legalizing maritime trade, standardizing the Maritime Trade Office's authority, and creating China's first written body of foreign trade law. The Maritime Trade Office prefigured modern customs.
True trade is carried out by private merchants. Its main participants were coastal communities, especially along China's southeastern coast, including Guangdong, Fujian, and Zhejiang. The state's attitude toward private merchants was critical to how trade developed.
Along land and sea routes, merchants from many lands converged. The Maritime Silk Road became a genuine golden passage, channeling vast wealth into the imperial treasury. By 1128, revenue from overseas trade made up 20% of state income. For the first time, commercial taxes surpassed land taxes. In an ancient society dominated by agriculture, this was without precedent and remains a rare exception. Kublai Khan, an emperor from the northern steppes, kept the oceans firmly in his sights. Even as he expanded the empire on land, he carefully shaped a maritime commercial order. Arab merchants, who had long dominated Indian Ocean trade, were in decline. European colonial powers were moving into Southeast Asia. This shift pushed the center of global trade eastward. China was poised to move from a participant in the Indian Ocean trade to a driving force in the Southeast Asian maritime system, establishing its central role in Asia-Pacific commerce. The Yuan dynasty was short-lived, but its maritime trade surpassed all before it. Behind the spectacular scenes of navigation lay the far-reaching ambition of a maritime empire. In 1402, Ming Emperor Zhu Di ascended the throne. He reopened maritime trade and dispatched envoys. Merchant fleets from across the world returned, and the southeastern sea routes flourished once more. A maritime route now ran from Guangzhou through Southeast Asia and the Indian Ocean to the east coast of Africa. Far longer than the Europe-Americas route. Columbus would open a century later. Ships crossed seas, goods moved through cities. As trade and culture flowed, continents gradually connected. A new world map quietly emerged. And a sweeping age of oceanic exploration was about to begin. On November 23, 2024, a monumental scroll, spanning 6 centuries, Zhengh's Voyages, was unveiled at the World Design Congress Exhibition Hall. Chinese artist Zhong Kaitian used a 500-meter-long scroll to depict over 300 scenes and more than 17,000 figures, bringing to life the grandeur of Zhengh's 7 voyages 6 centuries ago. In July 1405, Zheng led a fleet of more than 200 large vessels and over 20,000 crew members on an expedition. The fleet sailed past the Indo-Chinese peninsula, through the Strait of Malacca, and reached India's western coast. Over the following 22 years, Zheng commanded 6 further voyages, reaching the Red Sea and the east coast of Africa. These journeys forged an enduring Eastern legend in world navigation. Silk symbolizes the overland Silk Road. Porcelain defines the Maritime Silk Road. Among the cargoes carried by Zheng's fleet were fine ceramics from Shirwan town, Foshan, famed for its wood-fired dragon kilns. The Nunfeng kiln, known as the Southern Wind Kiln, has burned for over 500 years, fueled by summer winds. Feng Weimin, from Shirwan, Foshan, has crafted ceramics since childhood, blending modern ideas with tradition. He brings new life to old methods, giving Shirwan ceramics a distinct aesthetic through continuity and innovation.
It was a peak period. At its height, there were 107 dragon kilns, with different ones firing every day. In this process, Shirwan became a ceramics capital, and its pottery gained great influence across Southeast Asia and throughout China.
Archaeology shows that Shirwan ceramics were only a small part of China's vast export porcelain system. A production and export network centered on kiln sites along the southeastern coast had already taken shape. The jade-like celadone of Longchuan in Zhejiang, the smooth white porcelain of Dehua in Fujian, and the deep, weighty black glazed bowls of Jian Kills were all highly prized. Overseas, Liaobao tea from Guangxi was another sought-after export. Since the 17th century, overseas trade has knit once fragmented commercial networks into a connected whole. Across mountains and seas, China exchanged goods and sought out rare commodities from every direction. By the 19th century, China showed remarkable and growing strength in production, technology, efficiency, competitiveness, and exports on the world stage. The world's luxury goods were dominated by porcelain and silk, while cotton textiles ruled the mid-market. With unmatched manufacturing and export capacity in silk, porcelain, and related goods, China always ran a trade surplus. This combination of high output and low costs kept China at the forefront of the global economy. In the early Ming dynasty, coastal regions were unstable, pirate raids intensified, and the court imposed maritime prohibitions, banning private overseas voyages. To preserve imperial prestige and ensure the flow of goods, the Ming court revived the long-declining tributary trade system. By the Yongle era, Zhenghe's 7 voyages not only projected Ming authority abroad, but also brought this gift-based system of exchange to its height. As Eastern fleets crossed the oceans, European powers, aided by the Chinese compass, sailed toward new lands. New sea routes quietly linked civilizations scattered across the globe. The world was no longer isolated. An era of transoceanic exchange had begun. Yet just as the world entered the age of the sea, the Ming dynasty's ships returned to port. Zhenghe's voyages projected Ming power across the oceans, but could not hide the flaws of the tribute trade system. In 1567, the Longqing Emperor reopened maritime trade, allowing private ships to sail east and west, a move known as the Longqing Reopening. With the ban lifted, private merchants began to lead foreign trade. Bold and adaptable, they quickly filled the gap left by the state's withdrawal. Along China's southeastern coast and far into the interior, commercial energy surged, contractual practices spread, and a bottom-up transformation of trade quietly took shape. This shift from state-led to merchant-driven commerce not only reshaped China's economic landscape, but also drew the country deeply into the early currents of globalization. Rising along the Pearl River in Guangzhou, the Guangdong Customs House was constructed in 1916. It is the oldest surviving customs clock tower in China. The fully mechanical clock on its roof, carefully maintained over generations, has endured more than a century and still keeps precise time. Its steady chimes, echoing across 100 years, have become a treasured historical sound of the city.
Welcome to the Guangdong Customs Museum. Built on the former site of Guangdong Customs, this museum focuses on the history of customs administration. It is China's first professional museum within the customs system. China's foreign trade has a long history, but only in the Qing dynasty did customs take on a modern form.
Customs is the government agency dedicated to overseeing foreign trade. The first administrative body known as customs appeared in Venice in the 11th century. In 1685, the Kangxi Emperor reopened maritime trade, fully abolishing the 29-year maritime ban. The Qing court set up customs offices in Guangzhou, Zhengzhou, Ningbo, and Shanghai, known as Guangdong Customs, Fujian Customs, Zhejiang Customs, and Jiang Customs. This marked a major reform of China's foreign trade system. This decision ended the centuries-old maritime trade office system and ushered in a new era of customs-led trade. Among the four major customs offices, Jiang Customs in Songjiang focused on domestic coastal trade. Zhejiang Customs in Ningbo handled trade with Japan. Fujian Customs in Guangzhou managed trade with Southeast Asia. Guangdong Customs in Guangzhou dominated trade with the West. From 1757 to 1820, Guangdong Customs collected about 1.07 million taels of silver in annual duties. Fujian Customs collected 260,000 taels, Zhejiang Customs 80,000 taels, and Jiang Customs 70,000 taels. Guangdong Customs alone accounted for 70% of the nation's total customs revenue. The prosperity of maritime trade brought immense wealth to the Qing court. By the Qianlong era, customs duties ranked third among imperial revenues. Yet expanding trade brought growing risks. Repeated violations by British merchants alarmed the Qing court. In 1757, the court sharply raised duties at Zhejiang Customs, hoping to drive foreign traders away. When this failed, the Qing government closed the Fujian, Zhejiang, and Jiang Customs offices, leaving only Guangdong Customs open. The decades-long system of four open ports ended, and the era of single-port trade began. By this time, China's most important trading partners were no longer Southeast Asia or the Indian Ocean world, but the distant nations of Europe and North America. Unlike China's traditional partners, Europe's rapid economic growth drove rising demand. Although Europe lacked goods to trade, its recent conquest of the Americas gave it confidence. Here lay the world's largest reserves of silver. Over 2 centuries, Spain extracted tens of thousands of tons of silver from Bolivia. 60% was shipped to Europe, and 40% to Asia. Much of the silver sent to Europe was then used to purchase Chinese goods. According to André Gunder Frank's Reorient, between 1545 and 1800, around 60,000 tons of silver flowed into China from overseas. About 1/3 of all American silver ended up in China.
Under the single port system, foreign merchants were required to trade only in a designated area outside Guangzhou's city walls. All transactions had to pass through officially appointed agents, known as the 13 Hongs. The 13 Hongs were the only authorized intermediaries designated by the Qing government. All goods from the British, French, or any other foreign traders had to be sold exclusively through the 13 Hongs.
Unlike earlier officials in maritime trade offices, the Qing court realized that scholar officials often lacked commercial expertise. Foreign trade was entrusted to 13 merchant houses in Guangzhou. The court relied on merchants like Pan Youdu, Lu Guanhan, Wu Bingjian, and Ye Shenglin, fluent in foreign languages and skilled in trade. They handled negotiations with major Western nations. Through them, the 13 Hongs built a global trade network. Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain reached markets around the world, while silver flowed steadily into China through Guangdong customs. The 13 Hongs merchants were one of the Qing dynasty's 3 major merchant groups. Ships crowd the harbor. 2 seas meet at Shersman. Guangzhou silks abound. Silver fills the 13 Hongs. For over 80 years, under the 13 Hongs, merchant houses crowded Guangzhou, and vast fortunes were made. Known as the Emperor's Southern Treasury, this city became a hub of international commerce.
This Canton enamel bowl depicts Western figures at sea. It was made during the Qianlong era of the Qing dynasty. At the center is a date mark. 1757. That same year, the Qianlong Emperor ordered that maritime trade with Europe and the Americas be limited to a single port in Guangzhou. It's a crucial turning point.
Under the single port system, China-West trade grew increasingly unbalanced. Behind the growing imbalance was a reality Western powers could not ignore. They urgently needed Chinese goods, while China did not fully open its market. War thus became the choice of the greedy. 83 years after the single port trade began, Britain launched the Opium War in 1840, citing protection of commerce. China's gates were blasted open by warships and cannon fire. In 1842, the Treaty of Nanjing was signed. 5 ports, Guangzhou, Xiamen, Fuzhou, Ningbo, and Shanghai, were open to trade, ending the 13 Hongs monopoly. In 1856, a great fire reduced the 13 Hongs to ruins. Some merchants moved north to Shanghai, becoming a core force in the newly opened treaty ports. As the southern gateway for East-West exchange, in the Qing dynasty, the 13 Hongs stand as both an economic legend and a cultural legacy of global significance.
The 13 Hongs merchants, known for integrity and pragmatism. This is the same spirit we admire in Guangdong merchants today. It's a tradition that has been carried on and is still alive in business today.
3 years later, Guangzhou fell under Anglo-French control. The Guangdong customs was seized by the invaders. The following year, a foreign-controlled customs authority was established. The key to China's gateway was held by others. With the loss of trade sovereignty, the Maritime Silk Road declined after over 1,000 years of prosperity. Amid a century of national humiliation, it faded into history as a somber chapter. Yet as the historic starting point of China's maritime engagement with the world, Guangzhou's respect for commerce and open spirit are deeply woven into the culture of the Pearl River, enduring across Chinese history. Today, at this historic port, Huanpu Customs and Guangzhou customs stand side by side, carrying on centuries of commercial openness. After 75 years of development, Guangzhou Customs today has infused technology into this historic gateway. Smart logistics platforms run efficiently, customs clearance flows smoothly. A wider opening takes shape, with global trade fully connected, allowing commerce and culture to flourish together at the Pearl River estuary. Vast markets and continuous trade flows create boundless opportunities and enduring wealth. From the god temple's thousand-year incense to the distant chime of the Guangdong customs clock, from the rise of the Maritime Trade Office to ships crossing vast oceans, all bear witness to China's path from reverence for the sea to its rational governance. As the Pearl River carries the eastern ideal of calm seas and shared peace, it also conveys a simple truth: the best commerce benefits all. By helping others succeed, we succeed, too.